Okay, Miss Ivy.
Okay. I just want to confirm if you are seeing my screen.
What we can see, Miss Ivy, is stop presenting, but no
Huh.
slides yet.
Hmm. Okay. How about
Yan,
now?
yan.
All right. Okay. So, salamat, Sir Sonny. Thank you, everyone. Magandang gabi, Pilipinas, and good morning here from St. Louis. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. So, maaga po tayong nagising at I have consumed 2 cups of coffee already. So, I'm kind of very energized. So, I watched the previous episodes of the Hero Conversations and noticed that everyone picked a heroic character to go by. So I thought of assigning one to myself. This is Edna Mode from the movie The Incredibles. I chose Edna Mode from The Incredibles as my favorite superhero. So I don't know if napanood niyo siya, but if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend that you do. So these are some of Edna Mode's power lines in the movie. So she prefers to live in isolation as a fashion designer. Now, but she's not really a superhero. Her role is not to stand in the front lines, but rather she is more of a sidekick. She works behind the scenes, and uh, a cheerleader, as you saw her encouraging one of the superheroes in the previous slide. And at the same time, she is a catalyst. Kasi, as a designer, she designed superhero costumes that amplify their superpowers. So she helps the supers make better use of their powers. So very much like all of us HR practitioners. And I also think that I am more of an Edna mode character kasi nga po, I tend to strive better serving along the sides through our programs at the Catalyst Institute. And I also think that all HR has an Edna mode character in you. And also, kudos to all the HR comrades in the Philippines serving on the front lines, especially during these unprecedented times. So the word catalyst actually has a scientific or is has a scientific origin, and it's used in chemistry. But if you use it as a noun to describe a person, a catalyst is an agent that provokes or speeds significant change or action. So we've been talking about HR being change makers, and that has already been established that you are all change makers in your respective roles. But what I would like to propose to you today is to ask yourself, how can I be a better change maker? How can I be a better catalyst? And what change can I implement that will have the most significant impact? So before I proceed with my topic, please allow me to share with you how the evolution of my profession to contextualize the topic in this presentation. So here I will share my experiences and my encounter that shape what I'm doing right now. So I started my learning and development practice in HR back in 2009, where I focus on workforce development. And then my trajectory started to change when I was invited to do research, do curriculum development, provided coaching and training facilitation that started in 2011 to 2019 as Philippines Program Director of an NGO that's based in Cebu. So through this nonprofit organization, we serve clients or beneficiaries that are employed in various industries, from manufacturing, food manufacturing, services, and a social enterprise, BPO. So it's a combination of both. These are individuals that are recipients of services from a nonprofit organization, but at the same time, they are working in the corporate setting. And the types of employees that we served during my tenure were entry and supervisor levels, earning low to moderate income. So as I moved back and forth, so during this time in my career, I was contemplating about maybe doing full-time human services, but then my heart also goes out to employees working in the corporate setting. So as I vacillated, as I contemplated, and as I moved back and forth serving corporate and human services sectors, I started paying closer attention to some of the unmet needs that uncover each time I do training needs assessment. So I would do use methodologies such as focus group discussions. I would do surveys, observations, and do one-on-one interviews with the participants. So these are the interesting themes that I've gathered. So these are I would like to share with you the observations in the field that started to shape what am I doing right now. So number one, so the BPO that we were providing, that we were serving, um, where the beneficiaries were employed, we're providing wraparound services to staff. So what do you mean by wraparound services? This is a very human services sector term. So it means that this specific organization is actually providing services like mentoring, coaching, mental health counseling, and even advice about the employees' reproductive health and how to manage their family. So it's wraparound, anything that a person would need to really function fully. So the only service that this organization did not have at that time is financial capability building, and that is where that is what my former NGO provided. So the next observation that I gathered in the field is that employees bear social issues that are not met by traditional HR interventions. Another observation that I had is that HR interventions may be too generic and universal. Um, and for it to be based upon my experience, for an intervention to be effective, one of the characteristics is that it should meet where the employees are. Ano po ba ang ibig sabihin ng meet where the employees are? Meaning to say, we really have to understand um, where they are at the moment. And that initiatives and that we've noticed that initiatives are built with the assumption that everyone, regardless of role, tenure, or income level, is willing, able, and ready. So ganun po yung observation natin when HR create great programs. There's always that assumption na si employee willing, able, and ready. And that is not true in most cases. And then we also observe what we call the intention action gap. I don't know if you've heard about this, but there are initiatives that are really, really good. So awesome. Sobrang ganda po. If HR presents it to the potential target audience employees, it is met with enthusiasm and the desire. However, the intention is there, but there is also a gap in terms of action because my missing my there is a factor that's missing that will enable the employees to act on those intentions. So those are some of the field observation. Of course, marami pa po tayong nakita na observation, but these are just some of those general themes. Now, I would like to share with you some shared values of HR and human services. So again, human HR and human services share overlapping values. Sir Sonny Santos shared one of his resources where he presented all about policies. He talked about human rights. He talked about social justice. He talked about culture. So if you have not seen that, maybe we can request the facilitators later to share the link to um, para ma-review natin kung ano yung mga shared value, kung ano yung mga values. So this slide do not contain an exhaustive list of the values. So there are more out there, but I would like to highlight some overlaps. So the first value in human services that overlaps with human resources is again social justice and human rights. So what does this look like in terms of application in the human resources field? So pwede nating sabihin, okay, this can be converted into being able to have like fair and equitable labor practices. And then the second value in the human services side is what we call the self determination. So, self determination actually means having the freedom to choose and to decide. However, siguro some of you will question this value as paano ba? Is this applicable to the workplace setting? Kasi bibigyan ba natin ng kalayaan si employee to decide on his on or her own? And um, so maybe that doesn't sound too appealing to think that we allow our employees to make decisions, but that gave rise to concepts of shared leadership, collaboration, and empowerment approaches. So the next value that we share with human resources is acceptance, unconditional positive regard, or meeting people where they are at. Ito yung na-discuss natin earlier. So how will that be applicable in the human resources side? So this could be converted into introducing, practicing diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Now, let me share with you the fundamental theoretical framework that we use in almost all of the initiatives that we design. So, in the human services field, we use this a lot. So, we call it the ecological model or the person in environment perspective. So, it is very foundational in the human services practice that highlights the importance of understanding the individual and individual behavior or circumstances in light of the environmental context in which that person lives and acts. So, kung makikita natin itong diagram on the right, the diagram shows various levels of their environments or systems that are um, in the ecosystem. So, employee being at the center of this ecosystem, he or she is surrounded by what we call the microsystem, the mesosystem, we have the ecosystem, and the macro system. So all of these interact with each other and can influence the behaviors, attitudes, work performance, and condition of the individual. So for example, this could be this the micro the person in the microsystem of this employee. This could be the boss, this could be the friend, or this could be a significant other. So all of these systems interact with each other and could impact the employee um, kahit hindi siya directly affected, but somehow the way these systems move together, one way or another, it affects the way the employee behaves. So the question is, why is the person and environment important? Bakit po ba siya important, and why am I presenting it to you today? So, the predominant model used in human resources management has been one that focuses on individuals in organizations in isolation and the interactions that occur within the organizational walls, no? So, however, the landscape has evolved. Globalization, technological advancements, and even when COVID came, ang dami-daming changes na nangyari, nangyari. And that has led to that has led to many issues coming out and concerns that has popped up like mushrooms that are outside the scope of traditional HR role. So the PI or the person in environment provides an encompassing assessment of the person in the environment. Because of the many issues affecting the workforce um, actually occur outside the workplace, looking at the individual in isolation alone as basis for designing intervention may lack comprehensiveness, thus yielding limited impact. So the pie is also a holistic system that gives primacy to the ability of the individual's capacity to function and perform fully. Um, may nakakita po akong ang dami-daming learning events that are being promoted right now. So one of the event that I saw, not really an event, but it's an intervention. I just don't remember who sino nag-organize nun, but um, this organization, they have workers, they have employees that are working from home, and they created a program to teach the employees how to take care of their children so that the children will not interrupt them while doing their jobs. So this is an example of an application, simple application of the person and environment theory when designing HR interventions. So HR can be effective actors of social impact by looking at the intersections in the system and design initiatives that target multiple systems. So, pwede nating gamitin. So, we can use the analogy of feeding two birds with one scone. This might sound something new, but we are encouraged here in our school to use anti-animal cruelty language. So instead of saying hitting two birds with one stone, we replace it with feeding two birds with one scone. And actually, for those who do not know, scone is actually just some kind of bread. So maybe you can start using this language right now, feeding two birds with one scone. So another theory that we use a lot to help inform the design is what we call the trans-theoretical model of change, or what we call the TTS. So if you can see here, um, this represents the various stages of change. So number one is the pre-contemplation, the contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and relapse. So people or employees who are in the pre-contemplation stage of change, these are the kind of individuals who do not realize the need for change. They are in denial. So when employees are at this stage, you use a different approach. For example, kailangan awareness building muna, let them think or realize that there's a need for them to participate in a certain program, and then dalhin mo siya, you move the employee to the next stage, which is the contemplation stage. So the contemplation stage naman is that an individual is already starting to think or starting to consider that, maybe I need just to do something different with my performance or whatever. But they're open to changing, but then they are not sure yet. So the next thing you do is the next phase is what we call the preparation phase. This means that when a person is in this stage, they are ready they're able, ready, and willing. So nabanggit ko kanina na one of the observations na nakita ko sa field is that designs are as pag nag-design ng intervention, automatically may assumption na ready, willing, and available. So a person only feels that way if he or she is in the preparation stage. Now, sa action stage, ito na yung implementation. This is the most active stage of the process. Now, most initiatives go straight to this phase. Kasi nga sinabi ko kanina, interventions are designed with the assumption that employees may be able, ready, and willing. So most initiatives go straight to this phase. So, if you happen to promote or design an initiative and present it to someone who is still in the pre-contemplation stage, you might be met with resistance. Kahit anong ganda, kahit gaano ka-beneficial yung program na i-present mo, it will be met with resistance. assistance. And then after which it moves forward to the maintenance and possible na mag-relapse. So as people change, they move back and forth between the stages and cycle through them at different rates. So isa yun sa mga theories na ginagamit namin when designing interventions. So now, one of my core interests is really in social economic empowerment. So the case study that I will present to all of you today will focus on that. So I quickly breezed through some values of human services and presented to you some theories, but how do they look like in practice? So I'm going to present to you a condensed study of an initiative that I co-designed back in the Philippines. This is what we call the Financial Capability Initiative for Employees. And as we go through this, let us be reminded of the pie. So, but first, let's look at the findings of the study that helped inform this program. So, back in 2016, the Center for Social Development, one of the departments here at Washington University, conducted a survey. They talked to over 16,000 employees uh, and 93 employers. So they were trying to understand kung ano ba yung impact ng financial instability um, to a person, to an individual. These are to an employee. So this is the result of the study. So 47% live from paycheck to paycheck. 25% were having serious financial stress. And then 67% reported that their overall health and well-being improved after financial wellness. So ano yung financial impact ng not having good money management skills? Or if a person is financially unstable, ano yung result? So the financial impact is this. So employees are 2 times likely to miss work in account of finance issues. And then they spend 3 hours at work per week dealing with financial matters. So that's about 156 hours per year. So people in the the compensation and benefits, you make that computation and that will give you a figure of how much money is actually lost by the company if the employee is financially unstable. And another impact of financial instability relates to mental and social impact. So again, let's try to remember our pie as we look at these slides. So these are the direct impact, mental and social, of financial instability. So there's anxiety, there's depression, and there's also suicidality, and also intimate partner violence. So of all these impact, the mental and the social, what ranked the highest is anxiety, depression, and suicidality. Um, so I want you to think of it like looking at pie again, the intersection between certain issues. Intimate partner violence, it is actually, ito yung um, nag-aaway sa bahay. So financial instability could lead to, this is a social issue that could be a result of financial instability by an employee. So even though this is a study conducted among US citizens, I'm sure that we could see parallels in the Philippines. I'm hoping to find another a study or do a separate study amongst our employees and how it actually relates to how financial instability actually relates to mental and social impact. So there's also an interesting intersection that those with mental health problems make poor financial decisions, and those that make poor financial decisions lead to mental health issues. So another framework, another study that I would like to present to you um, is this one. So this is a framework that emerged from a study conducted by one of our social work professors here at Washington University. So this framework has been translated into social policies in the US and other countries in Asia, and hopefully in the Philippines, this will be implemented too because it's really very helpful. So we use this framework to inform our work in the Philippines. And here in the US, ginagamit siya ng mga financial technologies, and also organizations are using this framework in setting up uh, an HR department that is solely dedicated to building the financial capability of their employees. So, as you can see, financial capability leads to four positive benefits. Number one is its productivity, relational well being, mental health, and orientation towards the future. This is based upon the asset theory study of Dr. Michael Shiradin back in the 1990s. So, again, let's try to remember our pie theory. So, if you look at the definition, you will see the person in environment perspective being applied, the values of self-determination, and the ability to act or having the opportunity to act upon an opportunity. These are all coming together. So kung babasahin natin yung definition, financial capability is the combination. So it's not just one thing to make a person financially capable. So it should be a combination of attitude, knowledge, skills, and self-efficacy needed to make and exercise money management decisions that best fit the circumstances of one's life within an enabling environment that includes, but is not limited to, access to appropriate financial services, tools, and ample support. So, what about the design and implementation? So the first thing that we need was what we did was to triage employees according to readiness. So the word triage, we often hear this being used sa emergency room, di po ba? Sinisegregate yung mas serious, kung serious yung case ng patient, inuuna ka. Tapos kung hindi naman, uh, you are allowed to sit for a couple of hours before a doctor sees you. So the same is true when we designed and implemented this program. We triage employees according to readiness. And if you remember, we talk about the stages of change. This is how we apply that one here. And then secondly, the program design is tailored to the readiness levels of each group. So there's no one size fits all. So iba-iba yung timing. The timing is different, and the duration of the program varied across groups. So say for example, in terms of like timing, we saw that employees, first time employees, especially fresh graduates, they have disproportionate amounts of debt. Mas malaki yung they start being employed with having so much debt kasi they spend for money for processing whatever requirements they have, pamasahe. So nangungutang sila sa kung kanino man. So they started their employment na maraming utang. And the program is different for them. And also the design is also different for those that are retiring. So the third way that we designed and implemented this program is that we eliminated the action intention gap by setting up mechanisms in place, like and to make sure that we are making it easier for employees to act on the opportunity. So ano yung impact? So let's talk about ano yung impact ng intervention. So we conducted an evaluation after we run the program, and this is one of the verbatim responses of one of the participants. So ang sabi niya, I had too much debt that I thought about committing suicide. I also fought regularly with my partners and parents because I'm always irritated. My work suffered greatly because at work, I often think about where to get money to pay my debts. After this program, I got out of debt. Now I feel hopeful. So nakita natin yung, this is financial capability at play right here. And also, may na-observe kami na we saw an unintended um, and surprising residual impact. Kasi pakay lang namin, the objective of the intervention was to build their financial capabilities of the participants. But we found that this can be an entry point to other behavior changes. It actually led to an increase in healthy behaviors, like an actual decrease in alcohol and tobacco consumption. So, how about impact on finances and work performance? So, as you can see here on the slides, before before the participants participated in the financial capability program, um, the amount of their debt is you can see the increase of the amount of their savings increasing as they move forward towards um, the financial literacy training, and also or the financial capability building, and also the amount of debt going down. And this evaluation study was done back in 2018. So we do not have current data on ano talaga yung actual um, impact sa work performance. But we received anecdotal reports that, some those majority of those that participated in this program reported improvement in attendance and productivity, and they are more able to focus on their work. So the question is, um, if you're talking about social impact, how about business impact? So, what can a financial capability program do in terms of social impact and also business impact? So there are three things. Number one is employer advantage. So you can use this kind of intervention or initiative as part of your recruitment tool, talent management, brand building, employee engagement, and retention. And it also has a wider societal reach because programs like this can reach more than community-based programs and can actually become a CSR program that directly benefits your employees. At the same time, the results will directly benefit your organization. And this can also be part of an organization's business continuity plan so that, God forbid, sana wala nang another crisis as big as the pandemic, but this will this will help employees and organizations be ready in the future. So with all that was explained and shared, this is the moment to declare what is obsolete and maybe what can be reformed and what must be reimagined. So that ends my presentation, and I'm happy to take your questions, Bob.
All right, people. Baka may question kayo. Miss Ivy, very interesting yung mga shinare mong study, ano? And yung pie model,
Yes, Bob.
I hope everybody was able to take note of that. Pinakita dito yung, can you share it again, Miss Ivy, so everyone can see?
There.
Yeah, this one is nice. Okay, so makikita natin dito how it interconnects and the relationship of from the public policy down to the microsystem, yung professional networks, how it affects the employee.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is very nice. Ang ganda siyang makakagawa na tayo from here ng study on how to effectively introduce something, ano, to assist the employees.
Yes.
Kaya lang ang nakikita kong mahirap dito is what if the public policy is not consistent or is not aligned with human services?
So that's a very interesting, Sir Sonny. Let me just share with you what we're doing here sa Social Policy Institute. I wanted to baliktarin natin. Kasi right now, most sa human resources, very dependent tayo kung ano yung kung ano yung dinidictate ng public policy. But what we're
Mm-hmm.
doing right here at Social Policy Institute, and hopefully gagawin din, no, our HR group will be empowered to do their own research and actually actually propose policies to our legislature, to the legislators. So yun yung ginagawa namin ngayon. We are looking at different studies. For example, um, we are studying the behaviors of kung paano how do employees make certain decisions. And based upon that study, we want to propose policy changes to to legislation, make it a law in such a way para employees and employers were, so there will be an alignment, yung sinasabi na just like what you've said. Kasi oftentimes hindi nga siya nagmamatch eh. So it should be the other way around, hopefully in the Philippines.
Okay, people, baka meron kayong question. Hello? Na-shock sila sa
Very well,
presentation mo.
very well discussed po.
Do we have other questions?
Kung wala, ako magtatanong uli, ha?
Sure,
Miss Ivy,
sure.
going back. Oh, sige, who would like to ask?
Oh, I have a question.
Okay.
Can we go to that slide, Miss Ivy, where you had pre-contemplation, contemplation, that cycle?
Okay. There.
Yeah. Okay. So you earlier, I'm sorry, I was kind of like in and out of this meeting because I'm still in the middle of like work stuff. But one of the things that caught my attention was you said something around if you are presenting an initiative to someone who is still in pre-contemplation, whatever your proposition is, it will be received with resistance because they're already there. Are there I don't know if there are studies around this or some known best practices to help move whoever that stakeholder is from pre-contemplation to the next stage faster than they would normally do? I think it's a very important question to ask in a time like this where you need to make quick decisions. Let's say you're HR, or in my case, I'm with operations and I need to move our decision makers quickly, faster than they would have normally done in like pre-COVID situation. Are there things that you can, and I think it's a very useful advice for the rest of the community also, in terms of if they have bosses or decision makers in their organization that tends to stay in that space longer. Are there things that we can take note of so that, and we can use so that we can move them quickly into contemplation, so we can get into preparation action stage as quickly as we can? Especially pag problem solving, yung
Yes,
we're trying to deal with real employee issues or organizational issues that are kind of pressing.
Yeah, so usually the TTS or this model is used for individuals or for groups. There is a tool that you can use on how to move a person from one stage to another. So the tool looks like a questionnaire. Like for example, for the pre-contemplation stage, nabanggit ko kanina that someone who's in this stage is unwilling to listen, does not see the need for change. So one of the strategies that you can use to move this person to the next phase is to present data, present facts that are relevant to them, that will not only appeal to them in facts and figures, but as well as appeal to them emotionally, like communicating to them how will this benefit me and the organization if we actually do this. So that's one strategy that you can use. So may different strategy siya, may different questions to ask or to do as you move from pre-contemplation to the preparation.
Okay. Are there, like, for example, I'm assessing someone. I'm asking this lang as a general theory question.
Sure.
I'm not in this place right now. Like in my case, I kind of like figured out how my boss is. Because you were right. This is something you use with individuals or with groups, and it varies depending on who the stakeholder is. They could be the pre-contemplation. They could be there like in a snap of a finger and then move contemplation and get the prep quickly, diba? Pero are there like, for those who are slightly unfamiliar, what are some examples of maybe behavioral indicators or languages that flags us whether this person we're talking to is nasa pre-contemplation pala, ngayon nasa contemplation na siya, yung ganon. What are some of those key indicators na would help us determine na, I think this boss of mine is in pre-contemplation pa lang ngayon. Itong boss kong to nasa contemplation. O, ito nasa preparation na siya. Feeling ko kaya ko na itong move to action. I feel like these concepts have behavioral and language indicators.
Yes,
Yeah?
they do. They do. So, I do not have everything at the top of my mind right now kasi marami siyang
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I
indicators,
can imagine Parang,
but the pre-contemplation, one classic example, very common, is alam ko na yan.
okay.
Yeah.
Gets.
That
Marami yan sa
is,
Pilipinas.
oh yes,
Diba?
it's a number one sign of resistance. Like, we've done that before, or it might not work. So those are examples of language indicators. Now, when a person moves towards contemplation, example language indicator could be, well, it might work. Tingnan natin. So,
Pag-isipan ko, ganyan.
pag-isipan ko, meaning to say, they're open to it, but that doesn't mean that want they want to
Get into
clasp.
it.
And the movement actually, it varies depending on where you use this behavior changes, like for example in the context of
Well, no, I can
We are
hear
losing him.
Sir Sun.
Right. Okay.
Sige, go ahead, Miss Ivy.
okay, so for example, we're using this in the context of enabling an employee to practice better financial management kasi nga it's possible na this person goes to work late kasi walang pamasahe, and it affects his or her performance. Um, so those are examples of very difficult behaviors to address, and so the length through which the employee moves from pre-contemplation to contemplation varies. But in the human services area wherein walang pressure na mawala ng trabaho, it's different. If this person is working in a company that's very, very strict, a sample memo a simple memo could be enough to move this person from pre-contemplation to contemplation.
Okay, clear. All right, that's it. That's my question. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay.
you're welcome.
Just to share lang, siguro, Miss Eileen, pagka nasa pre-contemplation lang, pag ayaw kang makita. Tapos pagka pwede ka na makipag-usap, baka nasa contemplation na. Anyway, that's a joke. Ito yung nakita ko, no, as we are discussing. This is an actual experience with the client. Prior to this experience, we are data-driven. So the culture is family-oriented, very relational in terms of leadership. Okay, and then I pointed out to him as an executive coach that one day these people will gonna take advantage of the trust that you have given them. You have a very loose system, and you're very friendly, very accommodating. And one day, all these issues will explode in your face. Okay, and though we are presenting to him the likelihood, the possibility, and nasa pre-contemplation siya. But lately, one after the other, four people that the top management trusted connived actually for the last 2 years, manipulating the documents, doing fraudulent acts, stealing money both from people the employees as well as the company. And indeed, right now, andiyan siya sa contemplation phase. Sabi nga niya kanina in our meeting, or yesterday in our meeting, mapabilis yung transition ko from my existing management approach to that of more transactional and more of professional.
Mhm.
Sometimes, data will not be enough. Ito lang yung gusto kong i-point out. Kailangan minsan mapaso eh.
Yeah.
Okay, before they would learn their lesson. Yun lang, Miss
Uh,
Ivy, I'm not sure if there are studies concerning that.
um,
And with regards to sa resources na binabanggit mo tools, are these free resources that we can find somewhere or
yes.
not?
It's searchable online. Actually, the TTS model of change is it's available din siya online. But if yeah, so merong mga questionnaires lang that we tweaked and contextualized it to the Filipino culture or depending on the kind of um, based on the demographics na kung kanina namin siya gagamitin. But it's available online po. Hello?
Yes po.
Okay. Ito yung mahirap eh pag wala kang nakikitang person.
Yes. Miss Ivy, question po.
Sure.
I-reiterate lang siguro. Now that we know that there are contemplation and pre-contemplation, so most of the problems of the HR, syempre naman talaga yung pagkakaroon ng resistance from the management.
Mhm.
Can you share some more tips para po how can we address yung resistance from the management?
There depending so in applying this model to helping leaders change, we also connect this with an approach, an empowerment approach, which we call motivational interviewing. So this motivational interviewing approach enables us to draw to ask questions from a certain manager and parang shared leadership style na conversation. So instead of like telling them that this is what's wrong with them, we talk to them in such a way na sila mismo yung makaka-realize ng problem or ng issue. Because the moment you parang pag naging prescriptive ka or dictatorial yung approach mo to somebody who's to a leader or manager, automatically they will feel that their sense of autonomy, their sense of person or as a leader is violated. So that is enough to um, raise their level of resistance. So as a tip, rather than telling the leader directly, you might want to consider exploring options of um, asking questions like, tell me more about what's going on. What do you think is the issue? So opposite to prescribing. So dapat sa kanila manggagaling yung realization and also the solution.
It's like guiding them,
Mhm.
giving them the right questions for them to realize what are the problems are. Parang
Yes.
ganun.
So that's one of the methods that we use to help people that we work with realize that there is something that they need to change with their respective practices. Although alam namin kung ano dapat yung baguhin nila, we don't hindi namin we don't say it straight into their face.
Thank you po, Miss Ivy. Thank
You're
you po.
welcome. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, do we have some more question from the floor? Okay, Miss Ivy, habang kumukuha pa ng lakas ng loob yung iba, or
Okay.
they are typing their question. So, I'm trying to apply the discussion. So, the TTS theory or model works hand in hand with the pie.
Mhm.
from if regard kung nasa ang area ka, you're trying to influence from one circle, from the inner circle going outside. So the TTS applies.
Yes.
All right, all right.
It's a complementary siya.
Okay. And yung specific study na pinresent mo is interesting ano pagdating dun sa financial component.
Mhm.
Now, meron bang ibang studies pa that are available aside from that? I mean, that is very helpful because somehow
Which study?
the HR practitioners right now would know somehow to minimize or to interventions to address mental wellness and issues. Then
Mhm.
one of the major ways is to address this. Okay,
Mhm.
it's not necessarily adjusting the income, but
Mhm.
empowering them to manage their finances properly.
Mhm.
Okay, may ibang studies pa ba tayo na available? Just asking from the top of my mind. Ang ganda kasing i-present ito and baka may iba pa dyan that we could schedule you some other time, taking up
Um,
parang part 2 of this discussion.
yeah, we can actually, for now, I do not have a specific study that I have in mind. We have a lot of studies done in my institution, pero yung subjects kasi American citizens, so we are
Mm-mm.
always very cautious about presenting data that do not um, that are using a different set of subjects.
Yes.
But also, I'm in the process of looking for available studies that will fit the Philippine culture. Nakita ko po at one time. I'm not sure if it was from jobstreet.com, but I've been trying to look for studies that will match the experiences to identify and understand the experiences of Filipinos. But in general, um, it's the results are parang applicable to almost everyone kasi although the study was conducted to in America, but when we presented this to some individuals or HR managers before, sinasabi nila, yeah, that's exactly what's happening to our employees. It's only that it's not backed by data, but they have anecdotal evidence to prove, to show na ito nga nangyayari sa amin.
Mm-mm. While this is applicable, and while HR can use this as basis to provide some interventions, babalik ulit tayo dun sa pie model because
Mhm.
this applies to middle income employees.
Mhm.
But what about the underemployed and the minimum wage earner?
Um,
Diba? So regardless, even though they were taught how to save and how to manage their money, but in reality, kulang talaga. So how can they manage something that is already lacking?
yeah.
And one of our interventions in the community, this community, is yung tinatawag naming HRpreneurs. That's why
Mhm.
we are developing and educating as well these professionals to develop a side hustle.
Mhm.
Diba? Parang this is something that we can do from our own without lobbying for a salary adjustment,
Mhm.
fighting with oligarchs to adjust the salary, which is quite a long shot. So why not do something from within, from the community, and that is the side hustle.
Mhm.
Okay, so um, with that, meron bang related study pagdating dyan? I mean, we can make use of this as basis, but can we do you have an available data in terms of the correlation between productivity as well as having a side hustle? Because that would be a potential, or not a potential, but rather an issue with some employers. Right now, they may be
Mhm.
quite lenient because reduced salary and reduced work week. Okay,
Mhm.
so during those unproductive hours, then employee can find something productive. But
Mhm.
when everything goes back to normal, then that could be an issue.
Mhm. Correct.
And
Yeah.
if I'm making sense, I'm thinking out loud, trying to
Mhm.
connect the dots.
Yeah. So actually, thank you for asking that question, Sir Sonny. So the first question on whether this program will benefit moderate income employees, they do. It will, and it will also benefit low income employees, but the design will be different.
Mm-hmm.
um, the design will be different. So kakaiba kasi yung, so when we talk about financial capability, the first and foremost is kailangan meron kang income um, and you can sustain that income. Income sufficient. Dapat income sufficient ka. So you
Mhm.
have to address the sufficiency part of it. So the HRpreneur could be a good option in the interim, but the program that we designed and implemented in the Philippines was really intended to help the employees like focus on their work, because we
Mhm.
have observed na pag nag-entrepreneur si employee, there are two reason, there are two possible negative consequence doon. Una, their productivity will be affected, the focus will be mafo-focus na doon sa pagbibuild ng business. Or
Mhm.
secondly, pag wala silang pag hindi sila properly trained to manage a business at nagkaroon ng business loss, so um, nagba-backfire yung efforts. So the intention of actually building them to be financially capable, hindi nangyayari. So back to square one, nagiging mas problematic to begin. Mas nagiging lumala yung financial problem that you were trying to solve in the first place. So I'm just just to be very cautious about, so kung low income, um, yun lang ang uh, cautious lang kung paano siya i-implement.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Okay, people, do you have some questions, clarification? We still have 10 minutes. Let's maximize that. Ang ganda ng discussion natin, highly cerebral. It will really cause you to think.
Yeah, and also in relation to this topic on financial stability, a couple of days ago, this HR manager from the Philippines was asking me for advice about what to do with their employees, kasi nga due to COVID, nawala ng income, tapos pinabalik sila, and then now these employees are applying for loans. So ang nangyayari, 50% na lang nung sweldo ang nakukuha. And she was asking me kung paano gawin. And I told her na there's no way for you to, there's no other way for, you, kailangan, if a person needs money, he or she will source it out from wherever. Either mangutang siya sa labas, they could sell items, they could find items in their homes that can be converted to cash. But it seems like these employees are reliant on the company to continuously give them loans. So I told her na you might want to come up with something like a very short financial stabilization initiative, like maybe an hour or two na session that focuses on helping them minimize expenses. Kasi there is one study, Sir Sonny, and everybody, na when a person undergoes credit counseling before actually acquiring a loan, it reduces the amount by 20%. So, having said that, if they acquire lesser and lesser loan, that will help them stabilize financially much faster.
That's a good intervention, credit counseling. Magandang program yan.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it is available in the Philippines or some companies are already doing that. Kasi most of the companies I knew also, the same scenario. Okay, because na-max out na yung SSS and the other government agencies, so they are resorting to requesting for cash advance from the company.
Mm-hmm.
Diba? Again, it's a cycle. While I'm looking
Yes.
at this study, it is a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I mean, right now, because almost everyone is bankrupt, so the main problem really is money. Then where do you source money? How do you source that money?
Yes.
Okay, if you cannot source it, then how do you manage what you have? Diba? Reducing your expenses is one way, diba? But that would not be sufficient. You need to increase your income as well.
Yes, correct. So, and that is an opportunity that HR can do, like parang quick interventions, yeah. Just to minimize or to mitigate the impact of the income loss.
I'm looking at uh, clashes of mindset or paradigms from the side of the employees. The younger generation, perhaps this is not an issue to them, but when I speak of our or my generation rather, When we were raised, you study hard so that you can get a good employer and find a good employer that can support you and the family. But the younger ones, they are more dynamic and entrepreneurial. Okay,
Mhm.
so at one end, from the side of the employee, and I've encountered this, especially those are who are focused, who are treating their employer as their insurance investment, that anything they need or their families need, ang unang takbuhan nila is yung kumpanya.
Mhm.
They don't have any other backup except the company. And that's why they value that security of tenure thing.
Mhm.
On the other hand, pagdating naman sa employer side, it is also a fact that if you are too accommodating and too generous, you give your hand and they will take your whole arm. You give your arm and they will take your whole body. So there is no satisfaction as well. Okay, so if we will try looking at this study, if the company would try to address and try to introduce financial management, okay, it will also be pointless if it will just be it is not complemented by a monetary thing, a financial thing. Okay, this in itself, it may or it can help, but it will not solve immediately the problem of the employee.
Mhm.
On the side of the employee, um, reality talks, especially those underemployed and under minimum wage earners. Okay, I mean the cost of living is not commensurate to the minimum wage earners. And the situation is much worse pagdating dun sa probinsya because
Mhm.
uh, the basic the prices of the basic goods are the same as in metro. But the difference is mas mababa ang sweldo nila. Diba? Yung Jollibee dito, the same price din ang Jollibee doon. Pero yung sweldo ng mga nasa Jollibee doon sa probinsya is much lower compared dun sa sweldo dito.
Mhm.
Diba? Probably the difference is pagdating doon sa mga napipitas o nakukuha doon sa environment which can be much cheaper compared here. Pero I'm still trying to connect the dots. I agree with the study and I agree with the intervention. Pero if we will apply this on the Philippine setup, mukhang may missing link.
Yeah,
It's just my thoughts.
mhm. Yeah, again, as I've mentioned kanina po, when we designed this intervention, we combined two principles together. We combined the principle of human services and social work and also financial services. So marami siyang nitty-gritty details that come into the design alone and the implementation. Kasi nga, if we are to use human services principles into applying into this into a financial capability program, you have to tailor it to match the need, the environment of that particular group. So wala siyang one size fits all.
It's all, yes.
So po
Would
pwede
you know,
siyang maging po.
a group in the Philippines that could embark on the same study as what your group is doing there?
Not at the moment, but that would be something of interest to me. What I will do after this is I'll try to search for organizations that can potentially partner with us in creating such program and maybe in fact doing a pilot program to
Mm-mm,
test to a particular group. Kasi nga the design and methodology differs kung depending on your income bracket. So if
mm-mm,
low income ka, it's different. It's a different design. If you live in the city, it's a different design. If moderate income ka, what is designed for the low income population might not fit you. Or
mm-mm,
if you are earning way above, you might still need another program, but it might not be called financial stability because you are already stable. You might be presented with higher level kinds of um, uh, learnings, investments, and things like that.
Okay. All right, people. Baka may question pa kayo.
Sir
Miss Ivy,
Sonny?
Miss Ivy, before we close, can you just share yung slides number 7, yung human services and human resources. Yes, somebody in the house would like to ask a question.
Yes, Sir Sonny, this is
Hi,
Regina.
Red.
Hi, yes, it's not so much as a question, but probably just a sharing because I saw someone in the comments, they made a comment na some of the financial orientations that they've gone to usually pitch a product, no?
Mhm.
We also did this same interventions in our company. So recently, I just want to share that we did something rather radical because we're now promoting sort of a marketplace wherein we're allowing selling because we sort of acknowledge that because of the pandemic, a lot of our employees now have gone to online selling. So because of this, tumaas din kasi yung loans, yung application for loans, the SSS, pag-ibig. So what we decided is we'll join training and the platform, meaning we're going to come up with training resources wherein they can be empowered to know how to be an entrepreneur or how to be better at online selling. In fact, we've partnered with DTI because they have very good and free programs at that wherein they teach people even at a zero level, wala kang kapital pa, wala pang interest, all about entrepreneurship, how to start, how to decide whether a product is for you, whether selling is something for you, no. So apart from that, we have this platform where the training resources are. It's like FB rin, where all of the online sellers can simply post parang Facebook chat, parang selling, ganun. Yung the mine selling na ganun. So, nandun din sila. So, what we now promote is, if you're at a stage where you want to learn more, this is it. We're providing you the resources. If you're an online seller, this is still the place for you so that you can mentor, so that you can reach out to a network of mentors. And at the same time, for buyers, yung mga talagang buyer mode lang, hindi naman necessarily gustong mag-business, they can support local, our local, kumbaga yung our employees. So far we've received very good feedback, and and kumbaga from an engagement perspective, even the speakers we tapped were kind of surprised that there is a company who would actually be doing this, because the downside really is, what if they become very successful financially, they would venture, they would focus on that business and they would leave the company. Pero ang mindset din namin, and following Ivy's presentation, no, when we have people who are better financially who are in a better financial state, they can have enriched lives. So if ever they do leave the company, it will be for a good reason. So yun lang, I just wanted to share. So it may be something that the guys here can also tap. I seriously promote DTI as a very good resource.
Well, thank you,
Thank you,
Miss
Reg.
Ren, for sharing that very interesting platform. And sorry, Sir Sonny, you were saying something.
Go ahead, go ahead.
So nabanggit, I think that is a very good example of uh, having a support system tied into the technological platform. And also she mentioned earlier na may nag-comment about, magsi-sales speech at the end of a presentation. So normally when what we advise HR managers is, if you want to work with if you want to work with someone to help you with your financial capability program, we suggest that you find someone that is unbiased, na client-centered, na person-centered, and not overly promoting their own services. Kasi baka rather than helping the person or the employee, mas magiging cause pa ng stress, because we've experienced this in the Philippines na when we present these programs, automatically parang napasok na sa HR kasi somebody would come in for an hour or two, but majority of the topic is geared towards selling the product. And as I've mentioned earlier, a product might be good for a certain level of income earner, but it might not. It might be harmful if you force somebody who is not yet prepared.
Mm.
So we want to what we want them to look, be able to look at, assess financial services that are helpful, that will best benefit their employees.
But most of the financial advisors here are connected to several insurance companies. I haven't encountered yet na independent and objective.
Yeah. So yeah, should seek guidance from a professional na walang that will put the recipient's interest first, and that is really hard to find.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Miss Reg. Anything else from the group, from the community? Miss Eileen? Miss Joyce?
No, I'm good for today. Thank you.
All right. So before we close, okay, and let's just go back and review the slides. I hope, Miss Ivy, we could still invite you one day and we could elaborate on this. Okay, and how ano yung mga overlap points, and not only for purposes of learning session, which we really enjoyed a lot. Okay, it's mind-boggling. Sabi nga ni Angel, highly cerebral. It forces you to think, to redesign your approach, especially if you're an advocate, yung pie model, then how do you try to connect each circle, and how do you influence each circle using the TTS or THS, and yeah, very, very helpful. Pero ito, I hope one day it would still be available, and how we could still discuss, study, or collaborate on actual projects with regards to this, at least on these three areas.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes,
guys, sorry, Miss Ivy, go ahead.
I was gonna say that I am open to sharing my ideas. Should ever if ever may makakontribute pa in the future.
Yeah, marami ka mako-contribute. Tama, guys? Hello?
Yes po.
Ang ganda. Ang ganda ng
Yes po,
discussion.
yes
I mean,
po.
fresh perspective.
Totally
I
agree,
mean,
sir.
it may be theoretical. You presented an academic research, but the way you presented it, the way you connected it, and apply it in the current situation, it's very relevant. And I was expecting Eileen anytime to ask questions, and tama yung expectation ko. Tama yung amoy ko na
Ano ba?
maya hihirit ito.
Like I'm partida. I'm like half foot in, half foot out. It's so hard to say. But thank you,
Partida
Miss
pa yan,
Ivy. Yeah. I couldn't catch up with the rest. I only came in at the part where we were already talking about the cycle. So I missed the concentric circles for the ecosystem. That would have been a very interesting thing. But I'll watch the recording and see how that would apply, like for us in particular, because we're in the business of community building for our HR community.
Very helpful yung dalawang models na shinare mo, Miss Ivy. And in fact, you answered one of the questions. Remember our private convo, and I suggested, or I asked you ano yung proper intervention. Partly it was already answered, and I hope in our conversation you could point us or point me dun sa resources that we could further explore that. Ang galing, ang galing.
Certainly.
All right, people. Last attempt, going once. Going twice. All right, Miss Ivy, thank you very much, and good morning to you. Anong oras na dyan ngayon? Alas 6:30?
It's 6:30 in the morning. 6:39 to be exact.
Grabe, alas 4 nagising si Miss Ivy just to accommodate us. Salamat po, salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to share.
All right. So I will be uploading this video. Okay. I-edit ko lang yung sa last portion, itong mga ad-lib na usapan natin para nakafocus lang siya doon sa content, ano, very meaty, very thought-provoking. And we really need to reconsider our approaches based on the two models that she presented. Okay? And yung last slides na pinapresent ko, that is actually the interface that we would like to pursue. And one of that, I'm trying to, from my limited capacity, yung HR and HR. By the way, I already shared the link in the chat, in our chat box. Ito yung isang area na I hope we could also do something to influence our community. Yung social justice and as well as pagdating doon sa leadership component. Okay? And before we close, we would like to remind you of our event next Wednesday, again 5:30. It's called 3-in-1 because we will have 3 milestones next week. And we will formalize the transition of EHR Kamustahan to Hero Conversation. So from this point forward, mawawala na yung kamustahan, magpapaalam na, and we will be using Hero Conversations. Okay, and our community will transfer or slowly transfer from existing messenger group chats, hiwa-hiwalay tayo, and then we will move to our Hero Universe community app. We can only accommodate 50 next Saturday, but we will be accommodating more as we populate the app and as we fine-tune the different features. Yung ating HRpreneurs will be able to sell their stuff there. Meron kayong portion there, and we will look at a gamify activity na kung saan your engagement and your contribution sa peer mentoring would earn you points, and from that points, you could avail or you could use that perhaps to buy or purchase some of the items from our HRpreneurs. And of course, next week then, we will be launching our strategic coaching program. And to give you a brief overview, what we will be focusing next week heavily is on the freemium. Okay, so wag nyo isipin na nagbebenta dito because at the end of the session, malalaman ninyo kung ano ang estado nyo, ano yung kailangan ninyo ng assistance, and you will be able to articulate your goals and how you want to achieve those goals, okay, as well as the timeline. Now, if you want to proceed with the program, then pupunta tayo dun sa premium. But we will be discussing more of that next Wednesday, the same time, 5:30. We will just be sending out the invites once again and send out the GMIT credentials for that. Okay, so once again, thank you, Ms. Ivy. We appreciate the time. Okay, grabe yung mga na-share mo. Okay, and very few people lang ang na-encounter ko na intellectual yung presentation, but it will not only touch your brain but as well as your heart. Isa sa mga taong na-encounter ko na ganyan is si Maria Reza. Okay, pag nagsalita yon, kahit na highly cerebral, hindi ka makakatulog. Yung ibang mga nasa intellectual yung kanilang presentation, mas gusto mong magpatulog muna tapos basahin mo na lang yung presentation later. But your presentation, Ms. Ivy, is really thought-provoking, and we wanted more, actually. We really wanted more. Okay, so we will just have to probably schedule again one of these days, and probably baka gawin namin mag-start ng 7 para hindi naman masyadong maaga pagdating sa'yo, and the community naman can adjust. Okay, people, any last word kay Ms. Ivy before we call it a night? You can unmute your mic or chat.
I think there's a lot of messages in the chat that Miss Ivy can read. But maybe in behalf of everybody else, thank you so much for spending your early morning with us. We do appreciate your sharing. Hopefully, well, maybe just following through with what Sir Sunny said, it would be interesting to cue you in on some of the things that we're doing in the HR community, and maybe the positioning that, at least for now, what I'm looking at in terms of positioning you in our community is someone that we can ask for relevant case studies and different things that we will be pursuing as a community. That's how I see Miss Ivy's value add. I didn't want her to be a one person come in and then when she's not coming back. Hopefully, because this is a community and the essence of that is when you get invited in the community, you keep coming back. So hopefully we can get you to come back and do other case studies. I'm a big fan of case studies, even live business case studies. If you can bring many of those that are relevant, not just to HR, but to community building as a whole, that would be something that we worth pursuing with you. And if you're looking to start a project also of your own, you can ask our community if we know anybody who's into that area, especially if you're looking for collaborators. I think that's the real essence of communities and sessions like this. It allows for sideless collaboration. So hopefully we could work with you in the future in impactful initiatives